'cause that's good podding. Okay, I'm going
That's all
live.
right. No,
No more making fun of me.
this wasn't all live. Damn it!
No.
All the good stuff. I'm
Yeah.
out of here. I'm
There you go.
outraged.
I'm just waiting to start the podcast. Save all your insults for when it counts, and then it's down on the record forever. Hello, Internet. How are you? Derek's gone. He's indisposed.
Who needs that
And
guy?
yeah, exactly. Especially when I got someone like Patrick Johnston to fill the gap in his fresh Canadian. Well, I guess, is that a fresh hat? It looks
Uh,
shiny and clean, but you said it was like
uh,
from 20 years ago,
well,
right?
no. I mean, the design is 20 years old, but it's
Oh,
the Canadians realize there's enough nostalgia with guys like me hanging around that they could sell a
yeah.
bunch of these. Vancouver Canadians, for those who don't know, is a minor league baseball team in Vancouver who used to be owned by Molson's, but aren't anymore. But
Oh,
still have,
really? Is
but
that how
don't
they
have
got
the
their
design.
names?
100%.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were just the Canadians because there was no
Because
other.
it's lazy and easy. Well, it's also
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And because there's no other teams in their league called the Canadians. But I don't even.
There's also no team called the Americans, though, so that's a
Oh,
bit disappointing.
well, they couldn't be the Americans. That's just false advertising. Hmm. They should have a team in Point Roberts called the Americans.
Wow.
That
Oh,
would be.
wow. What a concept.
That would be.
What a pain
They
that
would
would
have
be.
like two players because there's not very many people living there.
This is like 5 or 6 years ago. The Seas were in the Northwest League final, and they were
Mhm.
playing, I think it was Boise. And Boise was, I think, the Cubs affiliate. And so they had a bunch of good, hot young prospects. But they also had like 4 or 5 Cubans.
Mhm.
And because of the time frame of when the league championship was, which is like early September,
Yeah.
basically their work permits that allowed them to be in the US because they're Cubans and they're super awkward. Their
Yeah.
work permits basically wouldn't have let them leave the United States to go play in Vancouver. So the Seas basically won because the other team couldn't bring their like 4 best players with them.
Oh, that sucks. I mean, it still counts as winning, I guess, but even if it's on a
Yeah.
technicality.
Yeah, only the listeners of Outrage Factory know that, will even remember that fact, and they'll probably have forgotten by next week.
Yeah, I don't want to disparage your C's deep pull facts, but I don't think too many people here are going to remember
It's
Canadians
all right.
facts.
They'll manage. They'll manage.
Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you before we get on to the stuff I promised everybody we'd talk about and why they're probably here. Well, let's talk about other stuff that I want to know. So, last time you were on was when was that? December last year?
No, it was in the summer.
Oh yeah.
We talked hockey.
Yeah, I was going to ask you another hockey question. So what's going on with hockey, like the NHL? Like I've heard that they might start in January. They might have an
Uh,
all Canadian division, so they don't have to travel across the
yeah, I
border.
think I think the all Canadian thing is yeah, it's pretty much a lock from what I understand
Oh,
because
really?
logistics. Yeah, I think just because there's so much uncertainty still with the
Yeah.
border, understandably. Yeah, so I mean, the plan, as far as I understand, is that I think we're more and more approaching a late January start.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny. I was doing some math with people, and part of you goes, okay, they'll start January 15, but then you remember that like the Canadian teams, certainly the players arriving to play for them have to quarantine if they're coming from the US or coming from Europe, have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing that, then if you're having a 2-week training camp, that means starting like January 1st. Well, that means quarantining over Christmas, which
Ooh.
seems not great. So yeah, February 1, I think now is more likely,
Okay.
unless you're getting guys to quarantine over Christmas. Like you allow
Hmm.
them to, unless you're allowing them to do like a group quarantine again, as they were doing in the summer, I guess is
Yeah.
the one variable, because they were allowed to do this. It basically they all arrived together, and then essentially because they were doing these private tests,
Hmm.
were tested every day, and essentially had to follow a process. They could practice. They weren't allowed to practice together, but they were allowed to at least work out
Yeah.
and skate on their own. That was in June.
Okay.
So I guess that's the thing. But then nonetheless, they were basically in their hotel rooms. And a lot of these guys do have families.
Yeah.
And, so it's just going to be complicated. But yeah, so February 1, I mean, that's just me speculating. I don't want anybody running out there tweeting saying Patch Johnston says they're going to start February 1.
Official Canucks writer says.
Yeah, but that's just me doing math. And then I think
Yeah.
you're kind of at that point, then you're talking about essentially you're looking at, the kind of schedule they did in 2012-13 during the lockout, or 94-95, like a 48 game.
Okay. Are they going to do a full season, do you think, or no?
No, it'll be a shorter schedule.
Okay.
For sure. Which is what the big argument is right now, which
Yeah.
is that basically the owners have come back and said, well, we're not going to pay you what we said we are going to pay you because you're not going to play the number of games we thought you were going to play. And players are like, why didn't you bring this up when we signed the deal?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
especially those people who signed the 1-year contract. But maybe that's also why they signed 1-year contracts out of free agency, because they knew they might get effed this year, and then they could re-sign for next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of money in the system in general because the salary cap can go up. But I mean, I did do a story a while back, like Oscar Fettenberg, who was a depth defenseman for the Canucks last year. He went and signed in the KHL, and if you do the math, even prorating, the sort of league minimum, which is likely what he would have signed for if he'd stayed in the NHL, he basically makes more money. It's not a ton more, but a bit more money in Russia. And especially now, I mean, if the owners get their way and do actually get to cut salaries like further, then yeah, he's definitely going to make more money just having gone to Russia. Although, I mean, of course, I mean, he's playing for a good team. He's playing for St. Petersburg, which is like Putin's team. It's like the richest team in the league. So, the richest, probably the safest team in the league. But anyway, yeah. So that's kind of where things are at. So we'll see.
Can these guys do the quick test? Like if they're coming from Europe and they're going to go to their camp, can't they just do like one of the quick tests and then they don't have to quarantine?
I mean, maybe they won't have to do that. We'll see. I mean, that's certainly, everything's kind of in flux. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. But as the rules currently stand, if they were to arrive today, they would have to do the 2-week quarantine. Shout out to my buddy Pat Morton, who's got 2 more days living in his dad's condo in Cole Harbor.
Oh.
And then he can actually leave.
I mean, there's worse places to self-quarantine than, that might even be worse, actually, because if you're right downtown where it's all awesome and it's Cole Harbor and you can't leave, it might even be worse than not staying at Cole Harbor. Just being tempted to leave. Although you can't really go do much right now.
No,
sorry.
But I mean, when I came back, like in March, because I was in Arizona when the season, like the hockey season, went on pause, and so we were calling it self-isolating then. Yeah. I did 2 weeks, but I was still allowed to go for walks and stuff. But like now you're not even supposed to do that. Like you're supposed to stay inside. Yeah. Yikes. You're not supposed to leave at all. And I had friends that came back from the UK in September, and the police actually checked up on them. Like the police came a couple times just to see, are you guys, what are you guys doing? Yeah. Just to make sure.
That's crazy.
Which is like, I know there's people that haven't necessarily been following the rules, but I'm glad these people are. Follow the rules, people.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to bring up
Outrage.
Again, before we get started and talking about stuff. Last week we were talking about the Bay and how the Coquitlam Center closed. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's open again, and they just had to pay half of their 7 months back rent. So it's all good there. That was court ordered. So if you want to go do some Black Friday, I don't know why I couldn't think of Black Friday. Go do some Black Friday shopping tonight or tomorrow. I think most places in Canada go till Monday. They go to the 30th.
I don't even know.
So you could go buy some stuff at the Bay. Also, they have 50% off their Christmas ornaments.
Is that true?
Yeah. I don't know why. I think they just they're selling everything cheap.
Do you know this because you have your Christmas tree up already?
Yeah, it's
Is your Christmas tree actually purple?
It's magenta, and it's metallic magenta. It's
wow.
an apartment-sized Christmas tree. I picked it out. Andrea kind of hates it, and she's like, "We should get a green one." I'm like, "We don't have the
I'm
space
I'm with I'm with
for a new
Andrea.
one."
I'm outraged. I'm with Andrea.
Hey,
What? You got a magenta Christmas tree?
yeah, you got to be
What are you
open.
gonna make your whole? Are you gonna make the whole place white now? Like make it the weirdest looking Connor McDavid style house or what?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, that's
What?
funny you bring that up.
Magenta.
Oh, we got. Let's see. Look at these. Funny you
I
say
mean, I know it's.
everything's white. We got some white stockings. I'm okay with a lot of white stuff because in Vancouver there's no snow. Like me and
True.
Andrea
Fair
both
point.
grew up in places where there's snow during the winter. So
Yeah, fair
if you
point.
were there and you had white, it'd be kind of overboard. But like Connor McDavid, where he is, there's lots of snow, so it's kind of overboard. But I claim that it's okay for him to have that house because he's
Well,
staring at like eye
he can do whatever
bleeding
he wants.
orange all
He
day.
can do whatever he wants. Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I still think it looks. The people that made the comparison with the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when like Dave Bowman gets taken off by the aliens, and then they put him up in this like weird, like all like bright
Mm,
apartment that looks like some kind of like I don't even know French Revolution era, like
yeah.
whatever the term is for that. I don't know these terms.
It's like retrofuturism is the
That's
term
the word.
for stuff from the past that's
That's
supposed
the
to
word.
look like the
That's
future.
the word.
Yeah.
It's a retro futuristic. Anyway, that's what Connor McDavid's house looks like.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Do you think we're going to be able to see pictures of Connor McDavid sitting in it in a diaper or an old man like in 2001: A Space Odyssey? Because
Eating
wasn't he like an old man
eating an
at the end?
omelet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he's aging like in front of you. Like it's a whole like you don't understand time.
Yeah.
Yeah, eating. He's like eating, and then he like looks down because he like knocks his food or his fork off or
Yeah.
something, and then he like looks up, and then he sees himself, but he's even older.
Yeah.
And then eventually he gets older. He sees himself again. He's in bed. And he's like this frail old man. He's like pointing,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden it's the Star Child.
Yeah. Funny fact about that
Aliens
movie.
are coming to
Yeah.
Jupiter.
Funny fact about that movie is it's not that funny, but it took me probably 10 tries to watch that movie without falling asleep.
I
Like I
loved it the
love
first time. Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
get it
love
though.
the
It's
visuals and
long and
stuff,
slow.
but it's just so
Yeah,
like because I
it's
was
long
always
and slow.
watching it late at night and that was a problem. The same with the first Alien. I would always try to watch these like slow burn, like intense dramatic movies, and I would just be like so stressed out because they're stressful. You're like, "Where's the alien? Where's the alien?" And then I'd
Yeah,
wake
yeah.
up like 10 minutes later, be like, "What happened?"
Oh, okay. So you got to the end of Alien, but like it wasn't. It was in fits and starts.
Yeah. Well, I'd watch it, fall asleep, and be like, ah, and then I'd start it over. That one only took 4 tries because it's
I've
not
only ever watched
as
Alien once. I didn't fall asleep, but I'm never going to watch it again because I was so scared.
yeah, it's very scary
I was
and
so
it's
scared.
slow.
I
Yeah.
hate being scared. I don't, ask Candace. I'm not, no thanks. I mean, even
No,
Candace doesn't like scary movies, but I'm just like, no.
I'm the same way. Like people are talking about like why like they're always like, why don't they make horror movies actually scary? Because if they do, they're unwatchable. Like if you watch The Grudge, like the one that had Sarah Michelle Gellar in it, I think that's like one of the scariest movies. And I watched it once and I'll never watch it again because it's
Right,
fucking terrifying. Like a
right,
ghost
right,
comes
right,
through the phone and kills someone.
right.
That's like the scariest thing I've ever. And then like the part. Sorry if you haven't seen this movie, you don't know what I'm talking about. But there's this part where this girl's in the room and she lifts up her bed sheet, and then the ghost murderer comes up from under the bed sheet. Like
Ah,
that goes against the rule. The bed sheet protects you from monsters, and them showing the monster under the bed sheet. That's just way too scary. I can't handle that. Like, how
no
are you supposed
thanks.
to protect
Nah,
yourself from that?
nah, no thanks. Nope,
That's why
nope.
I like American movies where it's like you have Jason or something, and you're like, well, if you had a rocket launcher, you'd be fine. But like if there's a monster in your bed, you can't shoot it with a rocket launcher because you'll kill yourself. And that's why we can't have actually scary movies.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So do you want to talk about what I actually said we'd talk about? Half
Yeah, let's
hour
do it.
in. Let's get to
Let's do
what
it.
I yeah. So Eric
Should we talk about
Clapton,
Eric Clapton, not Tiny Desks first?
Tiny Desks.
Oh, move along.
Wait, what?
Move along. Sorry, is that dog? Can you hear that dog yelling? There's a dog walking by.
Oh, I thought that was one of your daughters screaming. I was like, wow, that
No, the
sounds like
girls are fine. No, that's just a
okay.
dog walking.
Oh, you're
No, I'm
outside.
outside. That way it's quiet.
Oh, is
Very
that
quiet.
is that just you, Vancouver, flexing on the rest of Canada that it's
It's
the
also
end of
hot.
November and you can sit
The sun,
outside in a
the sun
t-shirt
came out.
or a
Sun
sweater?
came,
Yeah,
sun came
it is sunny for the first time in a while. I had to close the door because it looked like I only had half a face because it was so light, like this was all blown out.
out. Yeah, let's talk about Eric Clapton, Van Morrison, and their stupidity.
Wait, what's this tiny desk thing?
Trump.
Oh,
But
yeah, I
that's
never
maybe that's
got
the way to
that.
lead out. It's a
Yeah,
humorous moment. It's the moment of
okay.
Zen. It's the thing to laugh
Yeah.
about at the end.
I'm actually pumped that this is going to be the last podcast we talk about Trump because he's done and gone and now we never have to worry about him again. But we'll save that for the end like you said. So Eric Clapton, while Van Morrison wrote this song, fuck, I can't remember what it's called. Oh, American Dream. Is that what it's called? It's not out
What?
yet. So Van
Oh, the
Morrison
new.
wrote a song and Eric
Yes,
Clapton performs it. It's not out till December, but
right. Oh,
everybody's
sorry. This is the outrage song. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. Carry on.
So it's an anti-lockdown song because Van Morrison has this big
It's
fund
called
that he's
Stand and
trying.
Deliver.
Oh yeah. I personally, when you say stand and deliver, I think of that old Sugar
Edward and
Ray
James
song.
almost. Oh no, I think of the movie.
What movie was that? Stand and deliver?
Movie about the math teacher. What you got? Yes. You never seen this?
I am
Wow,
unfamiliar with that film, Patrick.
it's a great one. You should go check it out.
Yeah.
Inspire you to become a teacher.
Or not. Is that why you watched it? Because you used to be a teacher, didn't you?
I used to be no, yeah. When I used to be. I mean, I still do sometimes, but I used to be
Yeah.
obsessed with teacher movies just because, like, so often they're really cheesy.
Like that substitute movie where it kills everybody. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called? The
exactly. Like,
substitute? Yeah.
yeah,
I saw that one. He threw a guy on the fucking table saw. That scared the shit out of me because I actually use table saws. But
yeah. Stand and Deliver. Los Angeles high school teacher Jaime Escalante, played by Edward James Olmos, who is famous for a few things like
mhm,
Battlestar Galactica,
yeah.
is being hassled by tough students like Angel Guzman, played by Lou Diamond Phillips. But Jaime is also pressured by his bosses who want him to control his raucous classroom. Caught in the middle, he opts to immerse his students in higher math. After intensive study, his students ace California's calculus test, only to learn that their scores are being questioned. They'll have
Oh,
to retake the test in order to quiet the critics.
ooh, that's. I like how it sounded like an action movie, and then it's
You
just
gotta read
like,
it that
and
way.
then they write a test, and it's like, oh yeah, students write tests, and they're like, and then their test is questioned, and you're like, okay, enough with the test, and then they have to rewrite the test. You're like, so basically, the last half of the movie is them writing a test. Is there a
Yeah.
study montage?
Oh yeah, of course.
Nice. Okay, that's a
And the
good
sweat and
selling
heat because they had to
factor.
take extra classes through the summer in the
Oh,
scorching heat of Los Angeles.
is there young adult
Can they
romance?
can they overcome?
Is there young adult romance, say through the troubled Lou Diamond Phillips and a uppity or not uppity,
No, you know
higher?
what? I don't think there really
What?
is. There is, I believe, a teen pregnancy at one point though,
Oh wow, they missed the
but it's
bar.
not
They
like
missed
central to
one
the story.
there.
It's just like these are what these kids are dealing with. And it's like what?
They could have had that whole like uptown girl, downtown
Yeah,
guy, fish
totally.
out of what like odd couple
No,
romance thing.
just East LA, man.
Okay, so back to Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of immigrants,
yeah, so Van Morrison has this big like charity fund, and he's trying to get so I'm just gonna like start this like it's a good thing. So he has this fund because he has all these musicians who can't perform are missing out on
yeah,
all their big paydays, so they're going broke. So Van
yeah.
Morrison sets up, he starts this charity fund. I can't remember what it's called, but he just gives money to broke musicians.
It's called the Lockdown Financial Hardship Fund,
That's a long
which sounds
title.
nice.
That's rolls off the tongue. So this is the fourth song Van Morrison has written for this fund, and he got fellow, I guess, jerk off
Icon,
icon. There you go.
icon.
That's a nicer way to put it. Eric Clapton to write the song, and everybody basically just loses their shit because Eric Clapton overall is a piece of shit because for many reasons. And I thought it was funny because Van Morrison started this fund like way back in October, and he wrote
Yes.
and released 3 songs, and then on the 4th song people were like, wait, what, he's against lockdown? And they like all lost their shit.
Yeah. Which is the funny thing is you read the Variety story because it's just like it's very straight. But the link you sent me is very straight. Like, well, he's doing this thing, and they're trying to help live artists and advocate for the eventual return of live music, which like is an easy thing to get behind.
Yeah.
And then you find that Van Morrison thinks lockdowns are stupid, and then of course you get reminded that Eric Clapton is not actually the greatest guy.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Famously, it seems, I don't know if it was famously before, but it's come back to prominence that in 1976 he got up on stage and basically said, get rid of foreigners, get rid of black people. Just advocated support for some politician who was like anti-immigration, all this stuff. Clapton has since claimed that, like, he says, listen, I was drinking way too much and I said things I shouldn't have said, and I'm ashamed about that. You know what? We're all allowed to apologize, but the fact remains it still happened. And
you can't just say stuff like that and apologize.
When in those same times he was also incredibly awful to his ex-wife, and believe like was abused her. He's just been he was a bad dude. And then of course there's all this other controversy about whether he actually recorded some of it. Like Layla, did you see this thing about Layla?
No, I didn't.
So apparently the guitar solo isn't him. It's one of the Allman Brothers.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and the piano section, which everyone I think knows, especially from Goodfellas, was his drummer, who apparently murdered his own mother. Stole it from his girlfriend, who had already stolen it herself from some black musicians. So,
oh Jesus, yeah, like
incredible.
I mean, it's hard because you say, oh, these people just stole this all from like black musicians, but at least here there's like 6 degrees of separation between him and the actual black musician. But it's still bad. It's like, this was what, in the 60s or the 70s?
In the 70s, I think a lot of this stuff happened. Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
When was Layla? I think Layla's like 1970 or something like that. But
yeah, I'm not familiar. That's crazy. Yeah, and then Eric Clapton, of course. Like I heard about that, or somebody had tweeted like a quote from that speech he was given, like you mentioned before, and he was like, "Britain is a whites only country" and stuff. It's like, ooh, yikes! Like you can't just say stuff like that.
No,
especially for a colonizing country who has so much problems invading other countries and then forcing them to do all the labor and stuff they don't want to do. So, yeah.
Yep. It's no, it's terrible. It's just not good. And these two old guys should just stay where they were and stay off Facebook because they're not doing any good there. And just enjoy their millions and just we don't need to hear from you guys. Just stay away.
Like what Eric Clapton should have done is what Van Morrison did, was just release the song without talking about it, and then nobody could have listened to it. Like I'd be interested to see if the first 3 songs for this fun have any like plays on Spotify, or if anybody's purchased them with Apple Play or anything.
Oh, people totally will, because that's the other one. I mean, look at, to bring it back to Trump, look at how many songs he played where clearly the songs were not about what he was playing them for, and yet they just played them anyway because, it's a sweet guitar riff, man.
Yeah.
Fortunate Son is literally about guys avoiding Vietnam, which is literally what Trump did. But he's like, look how fortunate I am to be my dad's son. And it's like,
that's funny because that Fortunate Son song has been like used like patriotically so much, and it's never like, even before Trump did this, it was like used in so much other stuff where they were like kind of missing the mark on what it was actually about and stuff. What was I gonna say? One thing that was surprising about this was there's so many people who like Eric Clapton. Like I thought we all just decided he was in some super groups and he was like okay, but he was never like the best guitarist in any group he was in until he started a solo career, pretty much.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, always been, as a song goes, I've always been a huge fan of Layla. I'm a huge fan of some of the stuff from Cream, and Yeah, no, I've always enjoyed his music. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, you know, I mean, he's not Jeff Beck, and you know, that was always the thing with the Yardbirds, was that he was their second fiddle and didn't like that. Years later, apparently, or no, not years later. I read in a book. That's what it was.
Yeah.
He apparently, when he first started listening to the band, like the Canadian American group that originally backed Bob Dylan and then just went on to their own stardom, when he first heard what they were doing, because Robbie Robertson was this incredible guitarist and you know, sort of had appointed himself the band leader, much to the chagrin, I think, of his bandmates. Apparently Clapton, basically, when he heard what they were doing in terms of like musically, he basically was just like, wow, he was like embarrassed for himself. He's like, this is what I should be doing. Like, this is the kind of music I should be producing. And it was like, I think partly, I don't know if the story really, how it all kind of comes together, but you know, because he was friends with those guys. That was the other thing. So like, he appears a lot, stuff like that. He was friends with those guys. I mean, I don't know. I guess they all kind of knew each other in those days. I don't know. But anyway, Clapton, yeah, good. Probably, I mean, he is a 3-time Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, but you know,
yeah,
there
I mean,
better guitarists out there. I mean, I think his reputation is deserved as one of the great guitarists, but there's still guys that are better.
Yeah, like, are we gonna have to cancel musicians because they were shitty? And I mean, if we do that, are we gonna start emptying the Hall of Fame pretty much? Because a lot of these musicians were living pretty hard and drug fueled times in the 70s and 80s, and they all did pretty questionable things, as you could probably read in a lot of the autobiographies.
Yeah, musical talent does not, like in sports, athletic talent, or in writing, writing talent does not necessarily mean you're an awesome person.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
You know, I mean, yeah, don't ask me to create an ethical set of guidelines to assess whether you should like Eric Clapton or not. I'm going to tell you he is a terrible person.
Yeah.
And he's pretty good on the guitar.
Yeah. I mean, we constantly had to ask ourselves this question, like, so many times, like with Michael Jackson and all these other artists, where it's like, are we still allowed to like their songs? And it's like, I don't know, like, it's up to you to decide ultimately.
It's like Kevin Spacey, right? Are you going to watch Usual Suspects again? Right?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, Bryan Singer directed his. I mean, people don't realize that one. He's like almost worse than Spacey, which says a lot. Like, he actually, you know, like those, you know. So what do you do with that? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's a great movie, and there's 2 horrible people involved in it.
Wasn't Spinner's Pool where some of the bad shit happened? Like, I remember some of the claims against Spacey. There's something about a pool with underage boys.
I hadn't put that together, but I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So that makes the movie even worse. Was like, it has both those terrible people involved, and they might have been acting together.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those. Actually, it's one of those movies where it's like, once you know the twist, the whole movie kind of suffers on rewatching. So it's like, it's amazing the first time, and then the second time or third time, you're like, well, I didn't see this part before. But it's like, once you know, it's kind of like a Shyamalan movie where it's like, once you know, they're only good. Well, they're not only good, but they're only great the first time. Then they're just good.
Right. Well, yeah, you'll never have that feel again. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I had a couple roommates who had somehow never seen it, and years after, it's been out for years, and I put it on, and they literally leapt like out of their seats. They're like, "No!" And you're like, "Yeah."
How did that not get ruined just by like the zeitgeist? Because there's a lot of twists, like Soylent Green is people. Like, that's just something that's like, the joke is in so many other movies and stuff that it's just spoiled like by osmosis almost.
Right.
And I figured that The Usual Suspects would be like that by now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is years ago. So, I mean, this was before, I mean, we had the internet, but it wasn't like,
yeah, that's true.
It wasn't like you'd stumble across it by, you know, there was the odds of stumbling across the sort of what to be ready for were pretty low. So.
Yeah. It was before people started putting Han Solo dies as bumper stickers on their car. For that movie. Which one was that? That was the second one of the new trilogy, wasn't it? or the first one?
Yeah, The Last Jedi, the only one that was actually any good.
They kind of all blend
It
together.
wasn't even that good.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because it's like there's three movies and Rogue One and Solo, and they're all kind of just like, I think I just watched too much stuff where it's not
Yep.
like as like the lines to separate them. It's not like the first trilogy that they made where it's like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. You can remember what happened in either one of those, like
Right,
specifically. Maybe
right.
it's just me being older, but like all
Well,
those,
the other thing too, the other thing about the new three is amazing. Somebody was tweeting about just how awful Rise of Skywalker is,
yeah,
and I was sort of sat and thought about it, and I was like, you know what? There's a lot in this, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I've had no desire to go back and rewatch any of those three movies from the latest trilogy.
yeah,
There's no sentimentality in any of them, despite the fact that I walked out of each of them going, "Oh yeah, that was a pretty fun movie,"
yeah.
and I just have no interest. And whereas I, will go watch The Empire Strikes Back again.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny because to me, I was like, oh, it's action in space. It's automatically a good movie. And it's
yeah,
like,
right.
it's not like great. But yeah, I
Yeah,
get what you mean. I heard
yeah.
somewhere that down to like the small talk is they're talking that like Darth Maul was supposed to be in the newest trilogy that was out, but that was
No,
like George Lucas's plan. So they might make another trilogy where Darth Maul is the bad guy. And I think he shows up
no,
in
no.
the animated series the Clone Wars, and he's like the bottom half of him is like a robot spider thing.
Seriously?
I think so. But that was before they were like, all right, Lucas, you're not allowed to write these anymore. We're
Yeah,
gonna get
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
team. Like,
yeah.
because
Well,
people say how bad the newest trilogy is, but they don't remember how bad like the
the prequels.
prequels were, then how much people hated
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Too bad Derek's not here. He can tell us all about how Noah loves the prequels.
I just watched the prequels and they're not good, but they're not
Oh, that
as bad as everybody says they are. The
really?
acting, I think what it is the directing is terrible. Like it's too much green screen, and I think like the CGI was so expensive that there's a lot of scenes where I think they just told the actors to not move because they didn't want to have to like
Right.
animate around them. And then like there's that part, like the worst line is when Qui-Gon Jinn is like, there's always a bigger fish. But it's like you could tell it was all green screened around him, and that's why I thought of it. I was like, why didn't he move at all when he said that and like have no emotion? But I guess it was like they probably did a couple shots and they're like, okay, sit still. And he was like, am I still enough? But yeah.
How do they compare with Moonraker?
Oh, they're a lot. Actually, Moonraker was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like,
That's
I
so
guess
bad.
it is bad,
Oh,
but it's good
it's
bad.
like
Like,
what?
it's, I don't know. It's like,
Atrocious.
I give it a pass because it's from the 70s and they made the effort to go to space and shoot lasers and stuff, but it's terrible.
I
It's
did enjoy you commenting on how
atrocious.
you just had enough of Roger Moore after 7 Roger Moore
Yeah.
movies.
And now in my Bond watch through, I'm at GoldenEye, so I'm fucking super pumped because I can watch all those again, which I haven't watched GoldenEye in like 20 years. So it's gonna be good to see if it holds up. And now that
Good.
I have the whole catalog to compare it to, like before, like when I watched GoldenEye the first time, I'd never seen any Bond older than it. So now I can watch it with like knowing all the other stuff, like all the cheesy tropes.
Here's a question: Is Jordan Peterson worse than Moonraker?
No, Jordan Peterson's great. This is one of those things. This is it was more like I guess last year and the year before the podcast because Jordan Peterson's basically been gone for a year because he went to Russia to get over his addiction to uh an anti-anxiety medication where he was having trouble getting off it. So I don't know why. I can't remember why exactly he went to Russia, but he did. But okay, so what happened was Jordan Peterson had his rise to infamy. Everybody like he was very polarizing. Everybody either loved him or hated him. And then he went full carnivore because he has some kind of autoimmune deficiency. So he did an elimination diet and realized that he was healthiest when he only ate meat. And then his wife got diagnosed with cancer, and then he got like depressed and anxiety, so he got on these anti-anxiety medication, and then he couldn't get off them, and then he went to Russia. It's almost like a Bond movie theme,
Yeah,
like plot.
he's a Bond villain.
Yeah, so he goes to Russia and he gets off this pills, and then he came back to Canada, I think like a month ago, and then I don't know if he's written the book yet or if he's like gonna write
I
it.
think that, yeah.
And then
I,
Penguin.
I understood that it had been written and they were going to publish it.
Yeah, but it's they're not going to publish it till next year. So I guess
Right.
maybe they're just putting fine touches on it because I guess they want to edit stuff. So Penguin, is it Canada's biggest publisher or the
Well, it's
world's
one of the
biggest
world's
publisher?
biggest publishers. One of
Yeah,
the world's biggest
so
publishers.
they
Yeah.
decide they're going to publish it, which
Penguin
is
Random House Canada. Yeah.
yeah, which is smart because that's going to be a gold mine for dollar bills. And then just like what happened at Spotify when Joe Rogan signed a giant contract, a lot of the employees of a certain political leaning took umbrage with it and voiced their dismay that they were going to publish a Jordan Peterson book. And some of them cried during a town hall meeting at Penguin Random House.
I am totally on board with people crying at town hall meetings and expressing their frustration with their place of employment. Not that I've cried, but I've been in those scenarios. I'm not a fan of Jordan Peterson. I think he's an idiot. I think he's a particular group of people who just need to get over themselves and stop projecting their problems onto others. That said, obviously there's people who are interested. This is how free speech works. Which is the thing that drives me nuts. You can say, you're perfectly entitled to say shitty things. That doesn't make you immune from criticism. And that's so often what I find is that people of Jordan Peterson's type tend to complain about being criticized. And it's like, well, how do you think this works? So, that's fine. I think at the end of the day, I understand why people are upset. Like I said, I don't agree with basically anything he has to say. I think he represents bad things. I think people can be better than Jordan Peterson.
I personally like Jordan
and
Peterson.
It's important.
I think,
of course you do.
Like,
you work for the Calgary Sun. Of course you do.
That's not why I like him, because he's trying to he's like his 12 rules for life or whatever. Everybody's like, oh, this is stupid or whatever. Like, a lot of the criticism I was running into was people being like, don't people already know these steps? Like, just clean your room and you'll feel better mentally. Like,
right.
The problem with Jordan Peterson is it's not for me or you. Like, we're university educated. We know all this stuff. We've gone through like a path of self-improvement, and we basically know how to keep our like minds at a healthy point. Jordan Peterson is for mostly men at like the start of their mindfulness journey, where they're like, they don't really know why they don't feel good inside, and they haven't figured out that, like, one of the main, I guess, tenets of Jordan Peterson is that a lot of people who don't have like a goal or something to work for, it makes them depressed, and they kind of haven't figured it out why. So they need like kind of like a life's purpose. So he kind of just like says, even if you feel like there's no point and there's nothing to do, just clean your room. Like, it's like his whole thing is clean your room, make your bed. And it's just like, and it's one of those, like, it's like the starting point for mindfulness is to just clean up, because for whatever reason you feel better. So yeah.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I think it's more the fact that he's spoken out against things that people are really experiencing. And
I mean, he does have some questionable stuff.
So much of what he does feels insincere, because it's one thing to go around and say, here's how I cope, here's how I get through things, but so much of it is supposedly supposed to be presented as almost like self-empowerment. But if you're really empowering yourself, why do you care what other people are doing? Like, why is it an issue for you if someone is saying, I have realized I was born in the wrong body and I want to try to do everything I can to find who I meant to be? Like, what problem is that for you? And that to me ends up being the problem. It's like, Jordan, nobody's interested. Like that you're not all you're doing all you're doing is just promoting your brand of controversy, which is
Yeah.
ironic given what you're saying, which is like essentially F the haters and move on. And it's like, clean your room. You're like, right, yeah, that's great advice. Like,
Hmm.
figure out what you can control. Don't stop worrying about what you can't control. And that's the thing that always I find fascinating with the sort of that kind of mentality, is that you get so caught up in what other people are doing. It's like, aren't you supposed to be focused, like I said, aren't you supposed to be focused on your own struggles, your own challenges? Like,
Yeah.
there
That's
are a
right.
lot of things, like there's no denying that in life some of us are more fortunate than others, and some people are unfortunate, and it's not their fault. And it's, it is important to talk about the structural challenges in front of them.
Hmm.
But like, people who are trans people aren't blocking your way. Like, they're not, they might make you feel uncomfortable, but you know what, go do something else. Isn't that the advice? So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what it kind of drives me nuts about him, is it just, in the end, like I said, it all sort of feels insincere and
Yeah, it
and
is weird that he kind
unfocused.
of took it upon himself to take all these like young men under his wing, and he's like, I'm going to be a father figure for all these like basically like lost boys in their like
Yeah.
late teens and early 20s. So like what you were saying, I think that does maybe allude to maybe there's something that he's like trying to get over, like because he's like a psychologist teacher, I think. So
Yeah.
maybe there's some weird thing that he's like not fully come to terms with his masculinity or something. But I don't
I
know.
mean, I go because I used to be a teacher,
Yeah.
and I encountered obviously a lot of young people, especially boy. I coached rugby, so I dealt with boys a lot of the
Oh
time.
yeah.
We had shitty, shitty fathers. Like, it sucks. I heard it this morning. We were walking the kids, and we walked by. There was a soccer game going on, and there was a dad walking by with his kid and talking about his game. And his son said, "Oh, I thought I did pretty good, pretty well in the second half." And dad, believe it or not, said, "Well, I thought your first half was pretty garbage." And I'm like, "He's 10.
Yeah, that's
Like, what are you
crazy.
talking about?" But you run into this, and so like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people, especially as you said, like young men in their late teens, in their early 20s, who are like, I don't know, which is a difficult period of life for most people.
Hmm.
And you're trying to figure out who you're going to be, what you're going to be, where you're trying to get, where you want the starting line of your life to be, where sometimes it's already started, you don't know what, you're trying to figure out how to deal with life. And there's, at the end of the day, like, good for him if he wants to be this sort of role model. But like, the point is, as I've said, like, fix your shop. Don't worry about what other people are doing. And if there are challenges that
Yeah.
are coming from the outside, figure out what they're about, but don't cast about and throw stones and get upset. Like, if there
Yeah.
are broader things to be fixed, then get involved. Like, to me, it ends up just becoming an excuse for whining and complaining and not getting involved. Like, if there are structural problems in society that need to be overcome and need to be fixed,
Hmm.
but like, you don't fix them by sitting on your couch.
That's true. Like yeah, it's a tough subject because it's like I don't know. When I say like I like Jordan Peterson, everyone's like, "Oh, crazy! You like absolutely everything he did," and it's like, yeah, maybe not. Like the weird trans stuff that he took a stand for at the university where he was working was just like 5 years ago, where he said he wouldn't address like what he rose to infamy when he said he didn't agree with it being a legal thing in Canada for people like teachers and stuff to have to address students by their preferred
Right.
gender pronoun, and that's bullshit. Like whatever they want you to call them, just call them that. Like
Yeah,
I
like,
don't
don't care.
understand it. But his whole thing was it's like this weird like government overreach kind of like animal farm. Like I don't know. It's like it's one
Yeah,
of
no,
those
he took it
things.
in a whole other direction. You're like, what?
Yeah. And I was always like, yeah, just whatever they want, call him that. Like, if a guy has a dumb nickname, but he wants you to call him that, just call him that because
Yeah,
whatever. It's like to
yeah,
me, it doesn't cause you any problem. But for me, like I said before, like I just like that he was kind of like trying to reach like these young men or whatever, lost boys, and then, but yeah, like it's another thing too. It's like you almost don't want to talk about it because it's such a landmine of like like a quagmire that you have to like sift through and be like, okay, I'm okay with him saying this. I'm not okay with this. I'm okay with this other thing.
Yeah.
But as
Well, it's just
for
like you and me. People are not going to be happy with everything you and I say.
oh, definitely not. And then like
Outraged, even.
yeah, exactly. Like there'll be like one of the reasons we started this podcast, me and Derek, was because we got in some Twitter argument about I think it was like what people's worth to society was, like how different people have different worth. And it was like we fought about it for weeks. And then we're like, started this podcast because even we don't agree with each other.
Because the truth is, you're worth more than he is to society, right?
Uh I don't know. There'd have to be like an objective scale. I know because he's a father, so he's worth more than me because there is a young mind attached to him. And if Derek were to be taken out of society, that would also affect that his like kid. Whereas if I was taken out, I don't have a child to affect. So objectively, Derek's life is worth more than mine. I mean, as problematic as that is, and how depressing that might be to myself. I just wanted to say
Let it be said, and Dale just said Derek is better than him.
he's not better than me. He's just worth
Derek's
more.
not even here. Poor guy. Where is
Yeah. We should be piling on him instead of just telling.
he? Well, I opened the door.
Whereas
You didn't want to go there.
whereas your life would be more objectively worth more than Derek's because you have two children.
Oh, God.
So anyways, back to I don't know. I don't agree with people like you said, it's very frustrating, these town halls and stuff, and
There's a
you can
guest
get why
host right
people
here.
were crying and stuff. But for me, like
Yeah,
I get how like
no. There. There's the
nice.
guest host.
Oh, tilt it down a
Just
sec.
for those listening,
They're covered by your name. So just tilt your computer. Oh, there
for
you go.
those listening, there's those listening. Alice has appeared through the window. She just woke up from her nap, I guess.
Well, that's good. Yeah, what I was gonna say was like I don't know, for me, like I feel like publishing words and novels, books and stuff, as long as they're not full of actual hate speech, it should be
Mm.
okay. And Jordan Peterson, as problematic as he is, he's not hate speech, and he doesn't like effectively call for violence against any group of people. So to try and get his book not published through this publisher, I feel is like a level of censorship I'm not comfortable with. But I get how like I just the people crying just bugs me because it's like on one hand you want to be like, well, just get a new job somewhere else, but on the other hand, you got to
Not that easy.
understand how like tied
Uh,
into people's jobs their lives are and how they can't just quit and move on because of like they have families and all this stuff. But I don't know, like
I also go with the fact that for the most part, I'm not gonna judge what people are going, especially in scenarios like this. Like I'm not
yeah.
gonna judge what people are going through. Like people get emotional, it happens, and that's fine with it. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of should we move along
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say
before my
one
battery
thing.
runs out, or I go get a plug?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say before we move on was Jordan Peterson did put out a classy tweet. He said, please quit harassing the Penguin
Oh, really?
employees.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
So that's
That.
good.
Okay,
He's
that's good.
not like fully unreproachable. Yeah. We're almost at an hour, so we could close out with this tiny desk thing. Oh, yeah. Like I said
We never
before.
have to talk about Trump. This is the last time we're talking about Trump, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
tiny desk.
the
What do
reason
you
I
think? What
want
was that desk? Was that a side table? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay, as like a slow intro or whatever. So Trump finally, well, not Trump himself, but Trump's camp finally agreed to the transition to the Biden government, and they started allocating funds and stuff. So this
Right.
means Trump's officially on his way out. So I just wanted to take this time to say goodbye, Trump. It was a
Good
very
riddance.
tumultuous relationship, but by the end, I didn't even want to hear your name. So in the future, I'm glad to report we will not be talking about Trump on this podcast. I mean, Derek might want to bring him up for some other reason, but I'm just not going to include him
Yeah. Well,
because
I think you should just
yeah,
shut Derek down if he tries to. Say, no, you were gone. We took a
yeah,
2-0 vote. No more
yeah.
Trump on that rate.
Me and Patrick decided that we're not talking about Trump anymore. And you could have just,
Two-time guest Patrick, help me.
yeah.
And if Derek
So,
ever wants to pass rules, he can get on his own guest hosts and pass
mhm,
his own rules.
mm.
But yeah, how about that desk?
Yeah. What was up with that? Was that just
Was that
like
a side table? Like, what happened there?
the only thing I think that that's acceptable was if that was some weird, like, old presidential writing, like, letter writing
Writing.
desk that, like, maybe
Hmm.
Lincoln signed something on, or like back when they
I feel,
couldn't make nice
yeah.
furniture.
If it probably had to have been a smaller president. Truman. I think Truman was this little guy.
Yeah.
Lincoln was really tall.
Yeah, he was.
Did you see any of the stuff about the the boom or the cheesy? Because there's that cheesy Christmas tree, but like the actual boom mic.
No.
Did you see about that?
Wait, what
Okay, let me find it here. Okay,
for that for
yeah,
that
there's
actual
a guy
signing?
named Matt Blaze at Matt Blaze, who is a scientist, safecracker, writer, professor. I don't know what he teaches, but he
What
teaches
safe
something.
cracker? Who puts that in their Twitter bio?
Maybe he's a
I'm a
cryptologist. I don't
professor.
know.
I'm the professor
Anyway,
of safe cracking.
um,
Wait,
anyway,
what was that Twitter
he
handle?
at Matt Blaze. So he has a series of tweets that he put up Friday. And he goes,
Mhm.
"This picture." So it's the picture, the one in the background of Trump, like yelling at his stupid little desk, with the like, you can see the microphone that they'd hung over him for like the close-up shot, I guess, and then the tree in the background, and George Washington's above the fireplace, like the fireplace that isn't even on, like they didn't bother with that. The staging looks terrible. He goes, this picture's gotten a lot of attention because of the tiny desk and weird room decor, but geek Americans like me are focused on something else: the microphone, boom, and stand, which are emblematic of this administration's disdain for expertise. Let me explain. And then he goes on. He says the thing is a C stand with a microphone boom pole attached to it via a grip head and boom holder. So the stand, and it goes overhead. And you've all seen these mics, the um, mic booms and all these things. Like, it all makes sense. And he goes, anyway, via grip head, these things are not designed to be used together, but points for improvising. The first thing you might notice is the lack of a counterweight on the boom. Its stand wants to tip over, and although the pole is carbon fiber and fairly light, uh, is so they got away with it. But the real problem is the way the stand is being used. C stands are designed as portable support for small lights. They have three unequal length legs that can be folded flat for storage. This makes them tricky to use safely, especially when balancing a boom. There's one main rule: the long leg goes directly under the center of gravity. And then he goes on to point that they haven't done that. And he's basically like, they're so lucky. They're so lucky that this didn't like fall over. It could have fallen over, and they probably should have fallen over,
Mhm.
but it's just, they're like, let's half-ass it. We'll be fine. And that's been sort of the story of the whole administration in kind terms. And of course, the real story in the whole administration is that it's been cruel, and the cruelty was the point. And I'm so glad that they're gone, and I'm glad you never have to talk about them.
That's such a good way to wrap up the whole presidency. Like, I put a link to the tweet in the comments, and I retweeted it on my
Nice.
personal account.
Okay.
So if you're
There
listening
you
to
go.
this and you're like, I want to see it, you could go to
There you
that.
go.
I will put it in the notes of the actual thing if you've downloaded this and you're listening to it. But it is like, yeah, it's like just like the disdain for people who know how to do things properly and just be like,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out myself. Like, I
Like,
guess that's the last 4 years of America. And like, I guess to a lesser degree,
it's
that's
okay.
kind of like what it is to be an American. Like, their whole thing was
Do it
like,
like
we'll
Jordan
figure it out.
Peterson. You know what, folks? It's okay not to know things and to ask for
Hmm.
help.
Yeah. If you're going to learn any skill, one of the first things you learn is, if you don't know, you just ask a question. Because if you don't know stuff, it only gets worse if you try to just go at it alone. Like, it
Like,
doesn't
I
even
learned to
matter.
weld in grade 10, and I was really bad at it.
Hmm.
And I know now that I shouldn't weld, and that I should let Dale do my welding. And that's okay.
Yeah, I am a professional level welder. I mean, I'm not that great. I just get paid to do it. So that makes me a
So you're
professional.
still miles better. You need to be
Yeah.
telling me how to weld properly.
Hmm.
I was really bad at it. Anyway,
Well, I don't
enough
know. It's
about me.
like, it's more of like a I equate it to like drawing or painting, like just the hand movements of it. So if you have a hard
Mm,
time drawing, you might have a hard time welding.
I'm not very good at drawing or painting, so there you go.
Mm, well, all you have to do is ask for help, Patrick.
Yeah, ask for help.
There you go. Um, yeah, I
All right,
think
buddy.
with that,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming out for your, was this your second or third appearance? I think it was your second.
Second.
Yeah.
Second.
As the host, I should know that stuff. Where can people get a
Sorry.
hold of you?
At Rising Action on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm in the pages of the Vancouver Province newspaper,
Nice.
provincesports.com.
And are you going to
And
be the
yeah,
official Canucks writer this year as well? Because you were last year,
that's the
weren't you?
plan.
Nice. And
Yeah,
then,
that's the plan. It's still, as of today, is still my job. I mean, things could change.
nice.
You never know. But
I mean, I
that's
guess
where we're at.
if all the Canadian teams play together, that's going to kind of, um, that'll affect you too, because now you won't have to go across the border to cover Canucks games. So that's good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's obviously gonna. We'll see how that all plays out. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and like it, I mean, a certain level, it's comfort level with traveling on airplanes, and
Yeah, I for one am.
we got to see how our pandemic's not going so great in most of Canada right now. So we got to figure that out too, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like we did want to not go to the States so we wouldn't get their giant numbers, but hopefully this
Now we're getting
phase two
our own.
doesn't turn to American levels, so we could
Stay
kind of get
home,
under
wear a mask,
wraps. Yeah,
be
exactly.
smart, sort it out. Lock it.
Yeah.
Let's just like keep it smart. I know none of us want to think it's our fault,
Mhm.
but we all have a collective responsibility. And if we just kind of calm things down for a couple of weeks here, we could probably have a pretty nice Christmas.
Yeah, just stay away from each other for the next couple weeks, let the numbers calm down, and they won't take Christmas away from us.
I
Also,
mean, they
we
might
won't have
not.
to deal with people crying about how their freedoms are being infringed upon and like having stupid
Marching
parades.
about it. I'm glad we didn't talk about that, but I'm outraged by that too. Just come on,
Yeah,
folks. It's not like there people lived through a war.
yeah,
This is
that's true.
nothing. This
Yeah,
isn't hard.
it's one of those things where it's like I feel like we don't really need to bring it up because I don't think anybody who listens to this podcast is an anti-masker. Trying to think of some of the people
Yeah.
that listen to
I
maybe
hope not.
nah. I think we're all
I hope not.
yeah. I mean,
All right.
Trudeau says we're all
Well, if
getting
you're not,
vaccinated by the spring or by September, so we won't have to worry about this for next Christmas at least.
oh God. All right, buddy. Stay safe.
All right. Until next time, everybody, stay angry.
Although you don't know how to spell, I like employees.
Sorry?
You didn't write employees. You wrote employees.
Oh, fuck. It's because I go on my phone and I have these big fat welder thumbs. I always hit the letter beside the one I want. I
That must
find
have been tough
it's.
when you were still a graphic designer. Kind of hard to claim you have big fat graphic designer thumbs.
It's true. Then I just had desk job sausage finger guy thumbs. They were just fat instead of muscular back then. So I guess it's kind of good that I can
You're a real
claim.
working man now.
Yeah. Yeah, they just get wider because I swing a hammer.